there's been 2 wars since this show started. 52 weeks just finished up. This was kind of like in the world of professional wrestling, which I definitely made clear this was inspired by, this was what they would call a heel turn. Originally, I was just going to go live and do whatever I had planned. I had planned like some sort of like big heel turn thing, and I was going to be like, oh, you guys want more of this live stream? Well, I'm not giving it to you. The question is, did I select yes or did I select no? I mean, I've thought through, like, I don't know for sure, but I've thought through, like, what could happen with a continuation of that. I'm trying to do that. I'm working on Project Labrador, which I've been talking about for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, the Full Force Podcast is back, and we are in full force today talking about a few things. A lot has actually happened since the last time we did this show. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty confident. Yeah, no, I think there's been 2 wars since this show started. 52 weeks just finished up. Matt Pat retired. John Cena got naked in front of a bunch of people. So, I mean, I think the main bit of today's Full Force Podcast is going to be talking about 52 weeks. For those of you that don't know, it was a little bit of a narrative series that I aired, part of the JAS Presents banner for my short film series on my YouTube channel. I mean, and going forward after this, I've definitely determined that JAS Presents is going to be for narrative things, short films, feature-length films, things like that. The whole idea of this was to say, like, hey, in a year from me making this, like, here's the things that I want to change. And albeit not a lot of them changed. But I was like, where will I be a year from when this video was made? So that was the inspiration behind, like, wanting to do a 52-week thing. And then you also have where the show came from to begin with, Wyndham Rotunda, who I've talked about a lot. He's done a lot of, like, really creative storytelling. So early on in me returning to YouTube, I knew that I wanted to do something glitchy, hacky. Maybe it's the wrestling fan in me that's seen so many of those storylines. But I wanted to do something glitchy, hacky, so I started putting glitches into one of the Being Xander episodes. I kind of did it on purpose, kind of didn't, so the video footage got corrupted. I could have, like, redone it and everything, but I was like, no, this is the perfect opening for the hacker thing. I didn't know what the hacker thing was going to be, but I was like, this is the perfect thing for the hacker thing. So I went ahead and just made a video following that. That would end up being the pilot episode of 52 weeks. But I kind of stopped making content on my channel, and I was like, this would be the best way to return. Let's just outright, this is the only thing airing on my channel. 1 video a week was the original goal. And I was like, yeah, 1 video a week. I'm just going to run and gun, you know? The first episode was transmission number 1. Transmission number 1 was not originally supposed to be part of a series. It was just supposed to be like, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, here's this little hacker thing. Maybe they're hacking into my mind to make me depressed, and maybe that's the hacker thing that I go with. But I changed my mind. And I was like, oh, what if I just do a series of videos? And I kind of just described how it came to be, but there was also a bunch of themes in it, like depression, self-deprecation, obviously the hacker thing, and me not making videos. I was actually pretty depressed at this time. And some of the thoughts that I echoed within the first episode while I was out here in the shed was very real. The depression came from me literally being depressed. The self-deprecation came from the same thing because I wasn't too happy with myself. I had a lot of thoughts about myself. Is this really who I am? But the message of this was like, sometimes you're just going to lay in bed and think all of these thoughts. I kind of doxed myself in this because you saw the church next to my house. Somebody actually found my house, and they didn't, like, come inside my house or anything, but they went across the street and took a picture of it and sent it to me. I was like, haha, funny, but please don't do that. So then we get on to the second episode, which is Isolation. This is about me going inside of this shed out here that I've now turned into a studio since. In the middle of the night, there's a scene where the floodlight outside blocks the camera, because when you have motion and a motion detecting light, I wasn't thinking at the time. This was, like, very early on. But I had a bunch of cool shots in this one. Sometimes you just have to, like, think to yourself for a little bit. You have to take a dump all over yourself. Like, you have to literally just say, like, this is what I think, this is where I am, where do I want to be, what can I do to get where I want to be? And that's kind of what I was doing in this episode. This was a great follow-up to the first episode because you had me with all of these thoughts in my head, and I was laying there and I'm like, no, I'm in my really messy environment, which was a real messy environment. And then I was like, let me just go out somewhere where I haven't been in a while, start messing around and see what I can make. And in the show, that's what I was doing too. I'm like, let me just go to the shed and see if I can just sleep this off and think about this in an entirely new environment, which obviously didn't work. In the third episode, we got the debut of the antagonist character, which at this point, neither one of the characters have a name. Even now, neither one of the characters officially have a name. But we got the voice of the guy. He called himself the Machine. He said he was responsible for who the protagonist is, claims responsibility for his mistakes, and then kidnaps the protagonist. But it's like, oh, who kidnapped the protagonist? Obviously the guy whose voice you just heard. This is the introduction of the antagonist. This is the man who is claiming to be responsible for everything. Pretty simple. Although, to be fair, within those first 3 episodes, to wait that long to have that much exposition kind of sucks from a general TV series standpoint. But I had no clue where it was going at this point. Like, I was running gun with this. I knew what my beginning was, and I knew what my finale was. But then we got to episode 4. I'm waking up on the couch. Was I kidnapped? So I go inside, and I decide to, you know what? I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to get healthy, and that's kind of how I'm going to do it. You know, I'm going to get up and get going, and I'm just going to start pushing, and maybe if I start moving, the depression can go, because the reflection did not help. It continues to flow. The fever dream is like, okay, so something's going on in his mind, right? And that's what we've now revealed at this point. So then we get episode 5, which has a lot of jazz music. I get out of bed, mow the yard, which that was legitimately me mowing the yard. I take a bath, but first I'm going to use the bathroom. And then I almost show my private parts, which was interesting. I know a lot of people watching were like, what the hell is this? So then I went in to clean my room. And in this episode, we had a lot of this is where we started the first pan up and then something's happening. And it was less of me setting up the camera, because I know there was a perspective from someone who was like, oh, why is he just doing all these shots where he's setting up the camera? The kind of idea is that you're panning up as something goes by and happens. Obviously, you couldn't illustrate something happening as you were panning up, because, hello, I was the cameraman at this point. It was just me doing this whole thing. So that's where the pan up started. And then we got to probably one of my favorite episodes, honestly, is whenever we went to the mall. The mall episode was fun. I was dealing with some family things at the moment, but I called up Aiden Dunn and Logan Allred, because Logan had said that he wanted to do an episode of 52 Weeks. And I had talked to a guy who had put in for the casting call for Midpoint Americana. He lived nearby, so we were like, hey, you want to just come to this mall, and we'll kind of direct you. From the beginning, I was like, hey, this is run and gun. I told Logan, I told Aiden, I think I told Tulsa, who played the person who was following me. We just called him Tulsa, even in the description of the video. Tulsa as Tulsa. So we filmed at this mall with zero permission. Logan always wanted me to guerrilla film stuff, so that's kind of what we were doing here, and this is what I thought would lead to a bigger shoot with scripts and actors and everything. We're going to find out later how that changed and why that changed. We got there to the mall. Aiden was on screen with me. Me and him were sitting there talking. Logan was just like, all right, you guys just have a general conversation. Logan had his audio set up, which was like really rad. Lav mics and everything. People accused it of being ADR, but this was like really good audio that wasn't ADR, which is awesome to me. So we got up from the seats. There was a scene where Tulsa would look at me and kind of walk by, and I'd notice him looking at me and be like, in my head, what the fuck is going on? So I got up, followed him, and then it led to a chase, which was slowed down in post-production. I know. Logan and Aiden hated that choice with the music, but I thought it'd be interesting because this very dramatic short film series, I didn't need it at that point to be like super. I guess I didn't need it to be super duper going very fast. I didn't want it to be dramatic all the time. So I wanted to add a little bit of comedy to it. The what up music. It's classical. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's classical. But yeah, we filmed at that mall without permission. But after we finished filming, and Logan and Aiden were like upset at me because I didn't ask Tulsa or anything, but we went to Golden Corral after to film. Me, Aiden, Logan, and a friend of ours who was there just to kind of watch. Aiden was PAing kind of for the most part. He was also like a second cam. Logan was directing and obviously main camera operator. But yeah, so like I said, this is what I thought was going to be a larger starting point. I was like, hey, okay, so for bigger episodes, whenever I'm ready to do big episodes, I can bring in a crew and some actors and everything, and not next time we'll do a script, because I mean Logan was pissed at me for not doing a script. So this is also where we started credits, and I think it kind of broke out from all the episodes. I will say it didn't flow with the other episodes as well as some of the other ones did, but it was kind of a nice change. It's like, oh, we're somewhere that's not the house, and oh my gosh, there are people in this, and oh my gosh, the audio is good and everything. So it's kind of like that episode of Stranger Things where they had Eleven's sister in it. It was kind of like that. It's like, this is not 52 weeks. What are you talking about? But yeah, so the whole idea in the next episode is that I got banned from the mall. My character starts to realize, hey, I think, my character doesn't realize, but this is where the audience realizes, oh my gosh, this character might just be going crazy. So my character starts freaking out over minor inconveniences, like getting banned from the mall. But I also learned in this episode that shooting outside without like solid proper equipment is a pain in the ass. But something Logan had mentioned in the previous episode was that he wanted to do widescreen shots because he had some cool lenses he was looking into. So Logan's like, hey, in the future I want to do these wide shots. So I went ahead and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and make the rest of the show widescreen just so that we can keep this theme, right? So after that, episode 8, we had the phone call, where the protagonist calls a friend. He's freaking out. He doesn't know what's real or fake. And he's like, hey, I don't know what's going on. We make an allusion to the bike ride that's coming up, and we make an allusion to therapy, I think. But in the bike ride episode, which is episode number 9, one of my favorite things, obviously, is that I used the same song that Ryan Trahan used in his Penny series, the ba-ba-da-ba-dum-bum-bum-ba-dum-bum-bum-ba-dum-bum-bum one. This episode, I rode my bike down the road, down that way to the park. Honestly, this was kind of just a stepping stone so that I'd have something to call back to later. It was a short episode, but I actually really enjoyed the process from like start to finish, because this is one of the ones where there was a lot of options to choose from, and I was able to really directorially do things in it. But it also brought up the question of, does this really represent a week of what's happening within the series? And no, I think this episode was, I think it was pretty obvious with this episode that that's not the case. In the next one, I go to therapy. And I people were on me because I used this fake website that I called Better Me. And people were like, well, can you just call it what it actually is? And I'm like, because that would be so much more difficult. Like, there's copyright. Also, Apple. I'm just using this as an example, but Apple doesn't let villains hold an iPhone. Villains in movies and stuff cannot have iPhones. Like, they say, yes, the hero can have the iPhones. And I don't support the actual company because of some of its shady business practices. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that. I'm not gonna let the villain hold the iPhone, for a lack of better words. I used the website, though, because whenever I tried to, design the Better Me website, it just kept messing up. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use the real website. Again, not naming it. Many podcasts have sponsorships with them. And in this episode, this is where I noticed protagonist was spelled wrong. It was just from a typefast in one of the previous episodes. But this one kind of cemented the next few episodes and led us into a really transitional phase into the sessions of therapy. Following the Better Me episode, which was literally me just clicking and scrolling on a computer screen, I did 2 episodes. I did first session and second session. I brought in Rubiana Fernandez for the first and second session episodes. The internet issues that happened within the first session video actually happened for real. And I put them into the show because I was like, this would be cool. We actually used Riverside.fm during the show. They're not a sponsor, but I would love for them to be. I actually used it because it was recommended by the editing podcast. In this episode, I was kind of plugging the plot holes a little bit. And I was like, I don't really know what's going on. Are they hacking my life? What's going on? And I don't understand this. And it's that really the questions that we're asking. It's how is he noticing the hacks in the video that he's in? And it's it was kind of explained as it's a little bit of my brain. It's a little bit in real life. It is what it is, But then in second session, the shooting day for the earlier parts of the second session I was late. I almost missed the entire shoot day, which would have put the episode behind on schedule. But I got some good shots in this. For this, I did use ADR for a lot of the scenes, and just added in ambiance behind me so that I could kind of play with the sound a little bit. There are some drawers that were shown in the episode that were very disorganized and gross looking, kind of, because they were messy. And that was kind of to make him look disorganized. But there were plenty of montages in this. The episode was literally just the character doing the things that the therapist told him to do before the therapy session, and then the therapy session happened, and that was good and great. But then we get episode 13, which is The Grand Return, which was a really interesting episode, I'll say. It was fun to film. I actually just filmed it. I was on a drive through the city, and I was like, hey, what if I just film me walking through the city and use it as an episode? I licensed music from Sia and David Guetta, Titanium. It was just me walking through the city. I refilmed some of the shots that were done in the Midpoint Americana teaser. We were also referencing back to episode 2, I believe it was, that I showed the newspaper clipping of me being featured talking about Midpoint Americana. That was a nice little add to it. There was a lot of Midpoint references within this, for sure. And then we get episode 14, which is Laughing Matter. This is where, for the first time ever, we see the antagonist. He's wearing a Guy Fawkes mask. I actually looked for some other masks, but I couldn't find a better one. But this was the first episode, AP'd by Emil Sat, who was supposed to be my lead writer. I think up through... They had written a bunch of episodes for me. Emil Sat and a full creative writing team that I had brought on right after the Mall episode was done. Shortly before these other episodes were done. So I went ahead and did the Laughing Matter episode. I wrote it, and then Emil Sat AP'd it. And then we got to, after that, the Usual Suspects episode, which featured a lot of talent, and it was actually written by Emil Sat. I believe Emil AP'd it. I EP'd it, and she wrote it. It was actually going to be like full-on produced, like camera work by... it's called Satire Honey, Ada Dunn, Logan Allred. But actually, at this point, Logan had a bunch of stuff come up, which canceled the idea of him just doing episodes at all with us. So Aiden came back as a on-cast, just as a screen member. I had Dustin Newt play the role of Logan Freeman, who was very obviously supposed to be Logan Allred. And then Vanessa Neff came in as Evelyn, which was an older lady. It was shot by me and an anonymous production assistant. I don't know if I still have the footage, but Vanessa did get a little frustrated with me because the original, like, whenever I filmed with Dustin and Aiden, it was like, hey, here's kind of the idea of what we're going with. You don't have to go for it word for word. And with Evelyn, she was like a really good actress who had a lot of screen credits. So she's like, that's not in the script. Come on, what's the script? And I'm like, I didn't memorize the script word for word because I wasn't supposed to. And so, yeah. But the reason why I say there was an anonymous PA on this episode is because we were stopped by the police. There was originally supposed to be a whole other character who brought in a like huge arc to the story. The character's name would be Hallie. And Hallie would come in and be like a former best friend of the protagonist who, you know, was reuniting. They were kind of like, they had a lot of like romantical tension, which was kind of going to play off the whole idea of, well, the protagonist, you know, can't get a date, can't have friends that last very long, you know, so on and so forth. It's like, actually, you're kind of proving right now that they can, and boom, you know, it would lead to, she would double cross him, whatever, with the antagonist, and so everything would happen, and then at the end of the day, she would come back and join his team. But in this episode, a lady was supposed to play this character. And, you know, we got done filming. She was at the end of the day. And police got called on us because we got there. You know, she was not from town. So me and the anonymous PA got there. And I'm thinking this through. She texted me, was like, hey, you know, where must see what's going on. I'm like, hey, I was trying to text her back, hey, sorry, I'm running late. My phone died, so I got my computer out. We were trying to find her. I was walking around with the computer, and many people like in town were like, hey, what you guys doing? And we're like, oh, we're just trying to find somebody. We're supposed to film something. And she was like, hey, I'm at this address. So me and the anonymous PA, we went on and asked, like, we found the building. And we tried to open up the door, and we're like, oh, okay, the door's not working. Maybe this isn't the door that's supposed to be open. We go around to the other side. That door doesn't work either, so we got to the car. We got to the anonymous PA's car. I was parked nearby, too. But we went in because they had a charger in their car. And I was just going to be like, hey, you know, whatever happened here didn't work out. And I was just going to send them payment for it and be like, hey, head on back. Sorry it didn't work out. They were also supposed to join the writing team, which is wild because they had applied for the writing team, and I was like, no, this person's perfect for this role as well. So I was like, hey, you know, I see on here you've had some experience acting. Would you be interested in, you know, coming down to film, whatever? And so that didn't work. And we were in the car trying to charge everything up. And, you know, cops came up and were like, hey, are you guys looking for a girl? And we're like, yeah. They were like, give us your names. What are you guys doing? They made sure the stories matched up. And they're like, all right, well, you know, she's not going to be part of this anymore. We're gonna give her a police escort. You know, don't talk to strangers online. Please stop doing that. Kind of is what they kind of lectured us on that. But we used an industry standard website. So from there, I was just like, I'm gonna have to rewrite everything. And so I told my creative team, I was like, hey, this is the deal that happened. I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna work on like rewriting up the series. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this one aired on July 4th. We would go on to do the strike afterwards, but it would be like almost a whole 32 days later, because we had to figure out, I had to work on a rewrite, and I was like, oh, the writer's strike, it's a perfect thing to kind of use and say, hey, this is going on in the world. Why don't we go ahead and just come back to things and we can, redo this. So we did the strike episode, which, like I said, was 32 days late, 42 on the timeline, and I'm using data provided to me via Drake Dragsaw, because he had the spreadsheet made that he was sharing on his show. And this is data. But yeah, so we were 32 days removed from, I think 32 days in a week removed from the previous episode. And then, so after that, we were like, all right, well, we're going to do every other week. And so I did one the week later, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to kind of take a little bit of a hiatus. I spelled it wrong on Twitter, Hitaus. Hithouse. I took a summer Hithouse. And so from here, we did the strike, which was, like I said, it was shot as a potential like pre-hiatus thing, or even a potential ending if I had decided like, hey, we're not gonna keep this going because this was just too much. Like, there's a lot going on. We did blackmail after, which was, the protagonist being like, yeah, you can't do what you're doing, bud, because I have blackmail on you. And then from there, we did Called on Camera, which had some pretty cool effects, if I'm being honest. And then from there, it was just, the editing was done, just me rendering bits and pieces of things, changing the footage up, uploading it to YouTube to compress it, bringing it back in. And yeah, we did, it was Called on Camera, and it was really good effects. And then from there, we did episode 19, I believe, which is Deed Done. And this is just where the antagonist is like, hey, dude, I've been uploading this thing to your YouTube channel. And it kind of, in a light, revealed me to be the protagonist. But, I made it pretty clear, like, this was a fictionalized version of me, right? So then from there, we did transmissions 21, 22, and 23. Which was interesting. There was really a call, response, and rebuttal type thing. So, protagonist's like, all right, well, you know what, I'm going to hijack your transmission. And then the antagonist came in and was like, hey, here's what I think about that. And then the protagonist comes back in and, hey, I'm going to come back at what you just said. It was pretty simple, and it was just kind of a message to each other. And it flowed well with the previous episode, because it's like, all right, now the protagonist knows in the universe where we're going at, like, can go through and watch what the people are seeing. So now it kind of makes more sense. And then from there, we had some cameos in episodes 24, 25, and 26. We had Josie Nelson playing Jess, Scott Henson playing himself as the Big Cat, and Zeke Dilligaff returning. All respectively in Jess, the Big Cat, and a Blast from the Past. I almost actually just scripted out like content creators talking about the incidents going on, but I thought, like, because I had kind of revealed that it was a fictionalized version of myself, that actors would be a better deal to put into it. So I was like, hey, let me just bring in some past and current people around my life, and that's what we're going to do. So then, we did that. The protagonist followed up with his own transmission, once again, he kind of was hijacking the camera, but this time he's like, no, I know exactly where this camera is. Instead of just talking to wherever the camera is, I'm going to talk directly to you. That was kind of the whole point there. And then we did a live episode of 52 Weeks, which was interesting. Prior to this live episode, we did an announcement on the Xander Brand Digital YouTube channel, and I was doing both of them live because it was like, hey, I can kind of center this episode around, like, there's a lot going on right now. So on air, I was like, there's a lot going on right now. And then I cut in the clip of the announcement, and I actually had probably like 5 to 10 minutes to be like, all right, I have to find the exact moment that I want in this thing. But I had a LUT applied to the actual live stream, but I was also recording the camera source as well. So I was like, all right, so I have to take this, apply the LUT, and find the exact point, start recording, and then go on, find that exact clip, then go ahead and paste it in to follow whatever I was saying, and then we would go back to the episode. But it actually worked out. I was surprised by how easily I was able to do it. Logan already came back for the 29th episode and did like a message video, just like some of the other people. The antagonist called Scott Henson in episode 30 to thank him for helping him out on the his journey to attack the protagonist, I guess. And then Lilith, who I worked with on the Just Talking podcast, who is now a transgender woman, showed up. I had actually contacted Lilith. I was, hey, I want you to be in my episode. And they were like, hey, by the way, I'm now Lilith. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a pretty cool name. And I actually kind of put that into the script as well. But it was really awesome to rekindle with Lilith and do something with them. And then we returned to the White Room from one of my previous short films called The White Room. And kind of the whole idea with episode 33, 34, and 35 was that, like, I'm here and I'm learning a lesson from my subconscious. And then there was Locked In and Focused, which is where I got up, which is where I got out of the meditation. I'm like, all right, here's what's going on. Here's who I am. This guy right here, because I had the shirt with my face on it, would be so proud of me right now, blah, 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 blah. And I see the world in a whole new light. This was kind of like in the world of professional wrestling, which I definitely made clear this was inspired by, this was what they would call a heel turn. Kind of. This was more like the hint of a heel turn. And then the 37th episode featured the debut of the new mask, which was once worn by Wyndham Rotunda. And, it was kind of like is he mocking me type deal? Because, I've talked about how much Wyndham Rotunda means to me, blah, 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 blah. And that's what happened with that. Then we got episode 38 and 39, which is call and response and the note. Which was just me sitting in my chair being like, hey, bro, what's going on? What's going on? So it was like something new, something unseen to the show, which kind of was like, oh, something is changing. And then following some episodes of Degeneracy Live, where they were watching 52 Weeks, and they were, talking about me generally, I got on a live stream, and I made a fool of myself. Originally, I was just going to go live and do whatever I had planned. I had planned, like, some sort of, like, big heel turn thing, and I was going to be like, oh, you guys want more of this live stream? Well, I'm not giving it to you. But we talked a little bit, and I just started making up this whole persona a little bit. And I continued it through the live streams that would happen after. And then I mentioned that live stream in the next episode of 52 Weeks, episode 40. I am the Apex Predator. Out of the Old was an interesting episode because it was just a video screen playing some of my old content. And I thought it was really interesting because I was playing into this Watcher group, which the next episode would be the Watcher, which was them being like, hey, there's a lot of stuff going on. People are watching you. We're watching you. You don't know who we are, but we're watching you. And then we would get to Nightmare. Okay, so the Nightmare was an interesting reference to similar to the White Room videos. I kind of illustrated out I actually acquired this painting that was supposed to be kind of like of a hellish type deal. And that was Nightmare. And then from there, we moved on to When I Was a Young Boy. And yes, that was very much a reference to the old friendly My Chemical Romance song, Black Parade. When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be a savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned? And in this episode, the protagonist talks a lot about the way people treated him whenever he was younger and whenever he was in school, especially like elementary school, and how they would make fun of him for not being athletic, and just like everybody else, very based on a true story. And then we got to Sawyer, which I'm not going to say whether or not this is based on a true story, but real ones know. I'll put it that way. The Sawyer episode was about this guy named Sawyer who I nearly choked out. And so Sawyer, got me suspended from middle school. And then we get to middle school, high school-ish era with girls. So the general idea was, like, if I was an alpha male, what would my, what would I think about some of the things that happened to me, right? So I kind of dug into those a little bit. And I just talked about some of the experiences I had with dating in high school, or lack thereof. And then we got to glitch in the conversation, which was also a very good episode. Simple episode. Green screen footage, obviously, but the whole idea was that this guy's in the park, but if you look closely, there's a disc golf basket in the background, which, is a hint. Honestly, I liked this episode. I mean, it was like, is there two of them? That was kind of the whole idea of this one. But yeah, and then we got to the next episode, which is The End is Nay, which was play on The End is Nigh, because it's not quite the end yet, The end is nay here. This is the 48th episode. Doing my thing, talking about, I don't know what's going on. This was a 14-minute episode, which is wild to me. But we started with a recap of what had been going on. I was talking about the White Room. I made some wrestling references in here directly with footage that I shot from AEW Revolution. I made a Young Bucks reference. I made a Sting and Darby Allin reference. I just was talking about people that love to be hated and people that are like icons in the world. And so naturally, because I had filmed footage unplanned for this footage to be used, until I started filming, I was like, I can use this for 52 weeks. So I did that. And then it was really just a long monologue. And then I'm like, hold on a second. Let me think back. So, then it gets to my character who is watching the transmission. Then we get a flashback to the first episode. We actually, for the first time ever, get clips of me shouting in the shed. The ones that were used in that episode. That were supposed to be from me talking in my mind. Turns out I was actually in the shed talking. So maybe the reflection episode wasn't me getting isolation because I, didn't... Why would I get isolation, So then, I go on and talk a little bit... and I'm like, hold on a second. Something's going through my mind right now. I saw all the grass, I saw all the, the trees and everything. Let me think back. And then it cuts to old footage of the bike ride episode, which, as I mentioned before, was supposed to be like a callback type thing. And so we're watching it play out. It's me walking around. We have a little bit of like white borders around it because it's a memory. And then we... kind of me talking a little bit, and then it's like, hey, what if I went back? So we go back. We go right back to where we came from, and we go to the park, which was legitimately me driving down to the park. And so I went down there, and I start talking, and I'm like, hold on a second. I have to go back home. And then I do go back home, and I finally point out the disc golf basket. I'm like, I know where that's at. So then in the next episode, The Arrival, which is named after a disc golf disc that I lost the day that I taped some of the content in this. So 52 weeks, The Arrival, I arrived to the park. We have some nice aerial footage, and then we have me in the woods. Like I said, this was taped on the same day I went out and played some disc golf, so I decided to do this thing too. So I'm talking, I'm in the forest a little bit more in a different scene, and then we get to me approaching. I start approaching the disc golf basket, the exact spot where the antagonist was. And, it's like, okay, so I know he's hiding out here. Where are you at? Where are you at? And then we get to, this cult meeting thing, which is wild. It's like, why are there men in cloaks? There's chairs being set up, people arriving, a deal being made, and then, bunch of stuff going on. So then we get back to, there's a bit where just the rock music's playing as we kind of cut as it plays us out. And then we get to the penultimate episode of 52 Weeks. This one was interesting because we used footage from Degeneracy Live. Usually, that would get somebody a copyright strike because that is not my video. However, I paid to license the footage for this. I paid a license fee, and this episode, I own this episode in perpetuity, so if I were to, re-slice this episode, I could use the same clips that I used. Yeah. So, there were a bunch of Degeneracy clips that, played talking about me. And so we got on to... We eventually got cut back to the antagonist talking over some of the clips, and then we cut to a shot of an old man who is still talking because he is the antagonist. What the hell? But, if you look closer, you can tell it is a man in a mask. Pretty self-explanatory. It's a fake old man mask. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to show my face to you, whatever. So in the last episode of 52 Weeks, Transmission 52, I'm over by the shed, and then so I walk around a little bit. I walk back inside the house. I walk through the house, go cut my hair, which you can see right here. It definitely happened. I take a bath, and then we cut back to a really dark scene, but if you look close, you'll see it's the current version of me walking into the shed. And then the antagonist is talking to me, and we're doing a scene together, and ultimately it comes down to, you'll know when the time is right, but there's more to this than you think. And then so as we finish up that monologue, we cut back to our old glitchy friend. And it's saying, continue? Yes, no, yes, no. And so the options go back and forth between yes and no, and then it eventually goes up to yes before cutting out to the credits. What's going to happen? That's really the question that I wanted to leave everybody on, is what's going to happen. So... yeah. The question is, did I select yes or did I select no? I've thought through, I don't know for sure, but I've thought through, what could happen with a continuation of that. Maybe I do a full cut, a full cut of all the episodes cut together. I've already said that I want to do something like that. I'm going to do something like that at some point. Which is why, with the perpetuity thing, I had talked to Drake Dragsaw. It was like, hey, do I own this in perpetuity? If I do the full cut, can I still use the clips? And he's like, yeah, it's still part of the same licensing fee. So I mean, it's definitely in the plans for that, at least. But the show is obviously connected to some of the other short film properties. So, I mean, I don't know. It's really a question of... It's really a question of what do I want to do? You know, I have options, right? But it's also about like what's practical and what I can bring to light with the series. So, as far as the channel goes, though, I mean, we had some clips from Being Xander where I was making 52 weeks, but I don't want to air it because there was a bunch of like lost clips. There was a bunch of things that didn't get shot. So we're not airing that episode. That episode was supposed to air yesterday. This episode was supposed to air 2 days ago, originally on my content schedule. But I mean, as we saw yesterday with the cover video, we're back to regular content. There's a bunch of stuff that was already pre-taped. I didn't go from bald to hair to back to bald that quick. But I'm trying to bring in a new team, actually, pre-production and post-production for like the IRL based content, where I'm in this, you know, the regular studio shot where I'm like, all right, I'm eating something, or I'm scrolling through Reddit, or, you know, things like that. But yeah, so I'm trying to do that. I'm working on Project Labrador, which I've been talking about for a long time. It was supposed to originally launch April the 1st. I know, funny, right? It was originally supposed to launch April the 1st, but we had to push that back a little bit, in addition to pushing back some of the Xander brand stuff that we had planned out. But I also think there's a potential for, like, alternate media with the channel. Like, I've done a bunch of live streams, and, you know, I think we could definitely do some, like, shorts content. But, I mean, it's a matter of how we can take the Joseph Alexander Simpson channel and turn it into other things, right? I mean... I'm looking into other distribution options as well with the channel. That's why it's no longer like the JAS YouTube channel. It's the JAS channel. That's where we're leaving it at. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to consider with the channel, and there's a lot of things that I'm having to do on a daily basis as far as like legwork, both for JAS Enterprises as a company and the Joseph Alexander Simpson channel, because that's, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it makes it really hard to make content. But I mean, I think we're gonna get back in the groove at some point with that. But yeah, so for me, I think this is gonna be it. Be sure to find the JAS channel everywhere on social media at Real Joseph AS. That's my stuff, but I mean, really, most of the channel stuff's gonna be there too. I don't know if we're gonna get back to another episode, but stay tuned. We may have more on that very soon. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video. STS.